see so many living things around us, be it plants, be it animals, be it the microorganisms which we cannot see, but they exist around us. All of them are living things, yet they are so different from each other. But why do we call them living things? Because they carry certain characteristics, and the most common characteristics or the most important characteristics of all living beings is that all living beings are made up of a structure, basic structure, which is called the cell. So if I have to define cell, I will say cell is the basic structural unit of life. So why basic structure? Because all living things are made up of something which is called a cell. So if you have to see what is cell, why we are calling it as a basic structural unit of life. See, like a building is made up of bricks, and these bricks are what makes a building bigger, smaller, or whatever kind of it is, but bricks is what makes up the building. Similarly, an organism is made up of cells. Now this word cell was coined by a British scientist in the year 1665. His name was Robert Hooke. So he had a microscope, a very simple magnifying microscope, a simple microscope, and with that he studied a bark of a cell cork tree. So in that he noticed that there were structures which were like horizontal honeycomb-like structures, and these structures they had a specific boundary to them, and he called these like this. So he called this cell. Since what he had studied, a bark is a dead part of the plant. The bark of a tree is a dead part of the plant. So he could not see anything living inside it, but he could see the outer wall of these things, and he coined the term cell. It was Anton von Leeuwenhoek who discovered the cell organelles. He improvised on the microscope, and then his microscope had better magnifying powers. So he could see that a cell, a living cell, and inside that he could see certain organelles also. So that is why we also call him the father of microbiology, because he was the one who improvised and improved on the microscopes, and also discovered that a cell itself is not just the walls, but it also has certain living components in it. Now we can actually observe cells with compound microscopes. So these microscopes have very high magnifying powers, and these microscopes are what you commonly see them in the school labs, even in your physiological labs like Dr. Lal Path labs and all, pathological labs. So you will see them, and these are using a combination of glasses. So when you have combination of lenses and glasses, then you can magnify a thing. Okay. So and they do not use any other external source of lights. They use whatever light is available to them. So like the normal visible light, and their magnification is about 100 to 1500 times. So basically we all can see certain organelles in this compound microscope only. Then very high power of resolution, we have the electron microscopes. These do not use your normal light. They use electromagnets and a beam of electrons. So it is not the normal visible light, but it is electromagnets as plates, and then on that a beam of electrons is thrown. So what we get is not the life, but we get the images. Okay, so we get a scan or a picture of the cell organelles also. So they are so magnified. What is inside a cell organelle also we can see through these microscopes, and these are found in very specialized kind of lab, because they are very bigger in size, and they can magnify to 1 lakh, from 1 lakh to 5 lakh times. So if a thing is this tiny, you imagine if it is multiplied and magnified in 5 lakh units, so how bigger a very tiny thing will appear. So that is what these microscopes do, electron microscopes. They do not use the common lights that we see around us, not the visible light, but they throw a beam of beam of electrons and on an electromagnetic plate. So you get an image out of them. Okay. Now we come to, we have discussed how we can see cells. Now we come to unicellular and multicellular organisms. As the name suggests, uni actually means one. So uni means the organisms that are made up of only one cell. An example for them, this can be amoeba. Example for this can be paramecium. So these are made up of only one cell. Now this one single cell is capable of performing all kinds of body function, taking in of nutrition, digestion of that nutrition, then respiration for energy needs, reproduction, excretion, all the life functions are performed by this single cell. So we have organisms which have only one cell. These organisms are called unicellular organisms. Then we come to multicellular organisms. Most of the organisms that we see around us, the organisms that are visible to us, are multicellular organisms. Your plants, maybe this tiny plant, but it has got many cells. Then animals, even human beings, will contain about 1 trillion cells. Okay, so multicellular organisms are the ones which have many cells. Okay, so here the cells are differentiated according to the function that they perform. Okay, so we have different kind of cells according to the function that they will be performing. I will be elaborating on this point as we move ahead. But for you to understand that these multicellular organisms will not have one kind of cell only. They will have many different kinds of cell which will vary in shape, in size and also in the function. Okay. So most of the organisms that we see around us are multicellular organisms, and of course your microorganisms can also be multicellular, but generally they are unicellular. Okay, so you have both in microorganisms also you have a variety of organisms which can be multicellular and which can be unicellular. So now we will be studying about a very important thing which is called a cell theory. So we now come to the cell theory. This was proposed by Ed Sheldon, and he was a German botanist and he was working in Germany. And Theodor Schwann, he was a British zoologist. So both of them, if you actually see, one was studying plants and one was studying animals. But at the same time, almost at the same time, he proposed his theory in 1837 and he proposed his theory in 1838. So they proposed a theory in which they found out that be it animals or be it plants, they are made up of cells, and cells is a basic structural and functional unit of life. They also said that all living organisms are made up of cells. Okay. Now this theory was further modified because they could not find out a way how these cells used to multiply. So this theory was modified by Robert Virchow in 1855, and he said that the new cells which appear are appearing from pre-existing cells. That means the cells divide, the old cells divide, and they form the new cells. And he also said that all organism, be it a huge multicellular organism or be it a small organism, they all begin their life with a single cell. So even us human beings, we begin our life, we have trillions of cells, but when we begin our life, we begin with a single cell, which is when male and female gametes fuse and they form a zygote, and this is how human life begins. So it begins from a single cell, and it is true for all living organisms that life begins from a single cell. So we can say that the cell theory is that cells are basic structural and functional unit of life. All living organisms are made up of cells or cells. New cells arise from pre-existing cells by cell division. Okay, so the cells multiply by dividing themselves, and they divide and they multiply. Okay. So all organisms begin their life with a single cell. So this is a theory this is a modern cell theory, and it is proposed by Sheldon, Schwann and Virchow. It is called Sheldon, Schwann and Virchow's cell theory. Okay, now we come to the structural organization, and which means the division of labor among cells. We know a multicellular organism can perform, different cells perform different kinds of function. Okay, so we have different organs to perform different kinds of function, but all these organs, all these things are made up of cells only, because that is the basic unit of life. Okay, so cells of multicellular organisms are organized to perform special function, as cell is the basic unit of life. A group of cells which perform a common function becomes a tissue, and a group of tissues, when they perform a common function, they become organ, and when many organs meet together to form a common function, they become an organ system, and it is many organ systems in our body which make an organism. I'll give you an example of a group of cells, like if you take the digestive system. So you have three different kinds of tissues: the epithelial tissue, the muscular tissue and the glandular tissue. There are three different kinds of tissues which will be definitely made from different kinds of cells, and they make our stomach. Now stomach is one organ which is a part of our digestive system. So our digestive system includes lot many things, starting from our buccal cavity to esophagus to the stomach to liver, then it includes the intestines. So all these together form an organ system. Now we have many organ systems that are existing in our body: the reproductive organ system, the excretory organ system, the respiratory system. So all these systems together make an organism. Okay, so we can say that different cells of a multicellular organism perform different kinds of function, and this is called the structural organization of living organism. And since they perform different kind of function, they have different shapes, they have different sizes, and also the number of cells may vary. Okay, so we have the differences in their shape and size, and their numbers do vary. So now we come to the cell shape. We know that cells vary in shape and size, and this is not related to anything else but to the functions that they perform. Okay, the cells can be round, as most of our ovules or the eggs of animals are round. They can be oval, they can be cuboidal. The cells of our glands are cuboidal in shape. They can be bean shaped, they can be cylindrical, they can be spindle shaped, as we know there are certain bacteria which exist in this shape. They can be irregular, like amoeba. Most of the multicellular organisms show irregular shapes, or their shapes change their cells change their shapes because of the functions that they are performing. So they can be irregular. Even in our body, the white blood cells are irregular in shape. Then the shape of the cell depends on the kind of function they perform. Like if you see our nerve cell, this is our nerve cell. It is very long and it is very branched because it has to connect with other nerves. That is how it will transfer the stimulus. Similarly, the guard cells of the stomata, they are bean shaped. Okay, so when they have to close, they become turgid and they open, and when they collapse, they close the stomata. So they are bean shaped. Now, right now, what I have shown you is a turgid cell, and that is why we can see this opening. Now, muscle cells are needle-like because they have to contract and they have to expand. So they are needle-like. Similarly, the skin cells are squamous or squarish in shape because they have to provide a covering. And all these cells are enclosed in a membrane which gives them a shape. So they all, because of their function, they are in a particular kind of a shape, and that is why, and this shape doesn't change because they have to perform that function. Okay, now we come to the cell size. Cell size also varies. Generally, all cells are microscopic. There are a few exceptions. Like Acetabularia is an algae, and you can see the size of the algae. It is almost 10 cm long. Chara, another algae, it is almost 8 to 10 centimeters long. You can see its cell. Similarly, you have the ostrich egg, which is about 17 to 18 centimeter long. So these cells can be visible, but most of the cells are microscopic. You cannot see them through a magnifying glass also. You have to use a microscope. And also there is no relation between the size of the cell and the size of an organism. An elephant will have very small cells also and very large cells also. Like its nervous cells will be very large, and whereas its blood cells will be very small. So it doesn't matter in what size of what is the size of an organism. The size of the cell will vary according to the function that they perform. Now coming on to a few facts. The smallest cell which in the whole world, which we know in all living organisms, is a cell called PPLO. It is a pleuropneumonia-like organism. It is basically a microorganism, and the size is 0.1 micron. I'll explain what is a micron now. Largest cell which is visible to a naked eye is an ostrich cell, which is about 17 centimeter in size. I'll show you a photograph of that also. Then we have the longest cell, which is a nerve cell, and this cell is in human body, which is about 90 to 100 centimeter long, so it is almost 1 meter long. Then cells are how we measure it. What is this unit called micron? This is measured in a fraction of millimeter. Like if you take 1 millimeter, you know how small that is, and you divide it by 1000 part, so that becomes a micron. So if you divide a millimeter by 1000 parts, that means millimeter is 1000 part of a meter, so you can divide it with about a million. If a meter is divided in million parts, that is what is the length of a micron. So we can write it as 10 to the power minus 3 ml, or even as 10 to the power minus 6 m. And the symbol for this is this. So for a micron we use this U kind thing, and then we write m. Okay, now as I said, the cell size has no relation to the size of an organism. It is only because of the function that it performs, the cell size varies. So the nerve cell in an elephant will be equally long as compared to the nerve cell of a rat also. So both of them will have long cells. Now in a human body, the smallest cell are RBCs, which are 7 microns, or we can write it as 7 into 10 to the power minus 6 meters. So that is about their sizes, and in the next video we will be learning about the structure of the cell and the cell organelles.